Thank you, Jameson Williams. That was less than ideal. For those of you who don't know, just found out right around lunchtime that Jameson Williams, a few other Lions players, and several uh, several employees of the Detroit Lions organization are now gone or suspended for gambling. JMO's only got 6 games suspended. Quintus Cephas and CJ Moore are suspended indefinitely and have been cut by the Detroit Lions. And some other player that I've never even heard of, to be completely honest, he's also suspended 6 games too. But it's not like Jameson Williams bet on the NFL or anything. He bet on something else, but the fact that he did it in a Detroit Lions facility was what was against the rules. He could have stepped outside, maybe brought the device that you could have done it with out with him and step out beyond the sidewalk on the grass next door and done it, and he would be completely fine. But now we're not going to see Jameson Williams for the first 6 games of the season, which is over a third of the season. That's a lot of games when you're trying to win the NFC North and are expected to win the NFC North now, and could make the difference between the 1 seed or, say, a 4 or 5 or 6 seed. But he'll still be around to play 10 games. The first couple of games he'll probably need to get into the rhythm before he gets really good there. But by the end of the season, we should be on a roll, just like how the Lions were on a roll last year. So it could be far worse. So Lions are probably gonna have more eyes on them for drafting a wide receiver. I mean, some of us were still expecting them to draft a wide receiver even after signing Marvin Jones, but now it's looking more and more like it. Only now it might not be looking for the big-bodied X receiver that's good at contested catches, but also possibly the speedy route tree expert type of wide receiver. You know who didn't get suspended for gambling? Garrett Williams and Chris Olave. The 2 wide receivers that beat you out for starting spots, Jameson Williams, at Ohio State. The 2 wide receivers who got drafted in the top 10 of last year's NFL draft while you were sitting there at 11, and they got that bonus pay. And now, who are about to have their first 2 NFL seasons, are guaranteed to be better than yours now because they'll be playing 2 full seasons. How does that make you feel, Jameson Williams? Thank you very much for putting us behind, and we need you. We need your speed, and we need your talent. We need a wide receiver like you to stretch the field, to help our running game, and to keep our offense elite. And now we're not going to have that. So thank you very much. Packers fans and Vikings fans were all upset and screaming in agony that the Lions traded up for you and picked you. And I took a lot of satisfaction out of watching the reactions. I replay the reactions all throughout this year to this day. And now today they're laughing at what happened with you. The Packers fans, the Vikings fans that we thought fleeced them and that they thought got cheated, and they're thinking that it's justice because of that. So maybe I deserve it for being such a prick and laughing at those fans, but if it is, then what's done is done. Chicago Bears mock draft coming up. All right, so about the Chicago Bears, it's pretty obvious that one of the biggest goals has to be helping out Justin Fields in any way they can, especially with wide receiver help and the offensive line. And they've already done a good job of getting CJ Moore after they got the first overall pick, and they were able to fleece the Panthers to get several more picks along with that wide receiver. So that gives them some breathing room for wide receiver, but they're still going to be looking for offensive line help. But just as importantly as the offensive line, they also need help with the defensive line. So they're just basically looking to improve in the trenches all around. And I know most people are trying to get them, mock them, an offensive lineman in the first round, but for their number 9th pick, I actually went with an edge rusher, Lucas Van Ness, out of Iowa. And when I did research on him and I listened to Lucas Van Ness interviews, I noticed he's a really big Chicago person. He really loves Chicago, and he's all about their sports and everything, and he's a big fan of them. And even his girlfriend, Frankie Clement, is a sibling, the sister of current Bears tight end Cole Clement. So, yeah, I assume Cole is still on their team. Last I checked, I don't really pay attention to him. I don't really care. But regardless, Van Ness and Clement are probably going to be bros-in-law, especially being in Chicago. And not only that, but the Bears also have a defensive interior need too, at like the three technique and all that. And Lucas Van Ness has experience kicking down and playing in the interior when he needs to, along with edge. And I think he did that in the season before last year. So that should be able to help out the Bears with that. And I think from all that, that would make him an unexpected yet still sort of logical first round draft choice pick. So the Bears have a really big drop off from here all the way toward the end of the second round and early third round area, where they actually have a bunch of picks, partially because they were the worst team and they get like the first pick of every round, so to speak. So I made a trade. I don't think it actually affects this next pick, but I wanted to bring it up because it's going to be coming soon. So, well, actually I did. So that's right. That's what I did. I traded up back to the top of the second round. And even though the Steelers and the Bears already made a trade before, I had them trading back. And the point is, they get back toward the top of the second round and they draft Darnell Wright, tackle out of Tennessee, and get them some blue chip offensive linemen where they can. So, yeah, obviously I didn't realize the Steelers and Bears traded before this, and I realized that as I'm looking right now. But the point is, they trade back up into that area and with my mock draft and try to get them there. And they got that second round draft pick, and they gave up one of the later ones in the second round as well as in the third round, pick 61 and 64. So that's what the trade was. And I don't know if that would be enough to get up there, but that's what I did there. So addressing the trenches, one for each offense and one for each defense. That way each coordinator on each side of the ball will hopefully be a little bit happier. And then round 2, pick 53, still kind of in that area of round 2. This is seemingly the best BPA for offensive line every time I try to do this mock here. And as far as I can tell, they haven't visited with Luke Weipler, center out of Ohio State, but I know they need a center. And I know they've met with Ohio State's offensive tackle. So that may be the more logical pick there. But for all we know, the reason why they were visiting with that tackle was so that they can get that tackle to spill the beans on Luke Weipler through watching their practice tapes and all that, and passive aggressively trying to get information out of him that way. So that's 2 O linemen there before the third round. And I don't have the third round picks or whatever anymore, but I did address wide receiver here. And I went with Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State. I really do believe Chicago and the Midwest area are one of those places where they really value like the local talent and that sort of thing. And I used to live in near Des Moines, Iowa, for quite a while. And I learned quite a bit about like the nearby cities. So like picture there being a cross in the Midwest and Des Moines is at the center. And at the top part of that cross is Minneapolis. At the right side of it would be like Chicago. At the bottom side would be Kansas City. And then on the west side, left side, or whatever you want to say, is Omaha. And, Des Moines has a lot of mixed fans and connections with all four of those types of cities. And Iowa State is nearby Des Moines. It's probably about like I want to say half an hour to hour, give or take, north, but still all connected and everything. And not only that, but Des Moines has the Chicago Cubs AAA baseball team taking place there. So naturally, there's a lot more Chicago fans, which means the more fans, the more professionals, and the more connections, which means the Bears and the people of Chicago are probably paying close attention to those in the Iowa area, in the central Iowa area, as best as they can, because it's kind of like their backyard or their neighbor's side yard or whatever you want to call it. And I think Xavier Hutchinson is an underrated receiver. He's would kind of fill that X role. He's at least 6'3". He's had a lot of good contested catches. I've watched his tape, and I think he's pretty good. And I think he'd be somebody the Bears might target heavier than usual, because PFF has him like ranked way lower, like way below like Bryce Ford Wheaton, who's like 6th or 7th round. So, but I think Hutchinson is much better than that. And on top of that, imagine the Bears playing the Lions, and the Bears offense and the Lions defense on the field at that moment, and the announcer is getting confused on when they say the name Hutchinson, who are they talking about? It's like, oh, Hutchinson is chasing after Fields, and then Fields throws it to Hutchinson, and then a fan who's not watching the TV, but not paying attention for whatever reason, is like, wait, did Hutch just intercept Fields, or did he just pass it to the wide receiver whose name is also Fields? So I thought that was all interesting there. Again, Xavier Hutchinson is one of my favorite wide receivers in this draft. So, and I wanted to get him in here with one of these teams somewhere. So day 3, I can't emphasize enough how much I don't really take it seriously, because it would take me days to try to predict and perfectly analyze what's going to happen here. But one thing I do know, I think the Bears need help with the kicker, because the Bears lost to the Lions in that first game of the season at Soldier Field. And one of the main reasons was because their kicker missed that extra point, and the score of that game turned out to be 31-30. And if he would have made that extra point, then that game probably would have been gone into overtime, and God knows what would have happened there. So, and from what I've heard, that kicker hasn't been really consistent, hasn't been too consistent. So why not upgrade with one of the best ones available, that being Jake Moody out of Michigan? And Detroit Lions fans probably covet Moody as well, but they take him here. They take him here in round 4 at pick 133, similar to what the Cleveland Browns did last year with Cade York, arguably the best kicker in that last year's draft. So I figured, why not? And I have a few more picks down here. So don't think of this too much of an insult for the fact that a kicker went ahead of these players. Is just really more about the Bears needing a kicker, in my opinion. Jordan McFadden, tackle/guard out of Clemson. I talked about him in a previous video before, but I do know that the Bears visited with him, and when they brought him in, they tried him out at a few places, but interestingly enough, they tried him out at center, and they wanted to see how good he was adapting at center, because he's a versatile lineman. They want to see how good he does there, and how good he is at like pulling and on screen plays and that sort of thing. And I think he could be one of those versatile, can go run anywhere, do anywhere type of lineman that the Bears might need, and they might try to covet, and that would help give them depth on their offensive line there. So, and I've watched Jordan McFadden's tape too, and I think he's got a lot of potential, and he could be a very special player, but that's just my subjective opinion. And then in round 5, pick 148, I went with quarterback Aiden O'Connell out of Purdue. I know that O'Connell has visited with the Bears. I am skeptical that they might need a quarterback, but they might want quarterback depth just in case they decide to have Fields run with the ball as much as they did last year, and then he winds up hurting himself. And then O'Connell would be somebody who could make a good backup, although he probably wouldn't run anywhere near as much as Fields, but he could probably make some accurate passes. And he is relatively nearby Chicago, being over near Purdue, next door in Indiana. So, like I said with Hutchinson earlier about um, Chicago, like in their local people. So, and I really tried to trade up to with the last two seventh rounds picks because I didn't want to have to try to guess who they were going to get at seventh round. So I just switched the setting to find the best available safeties and linebackers and try to find the best BPA there for special teams because I think that's what would probably happen there. So, these players I think would probably just be like special teams. Maybe we'll help out in defense because Chicago's system, their new regime is still sort of defensive minded, but I think these guys would probably be special teamers at most unless they manage to package these into another trade somewhere. So Troy Brown, linebacker, Mississippi, as well as Gervarius Owens, safety out of Houston. So yeah, not too much to say about them. Yeah, and that concludes basically what I think the idea of what I think each of the NFC North teams might try to go for. Who knows how accurate that'll all turn out to be. And it'll be interesting because I think the Chicago Bears, even though they are where the Detroit Lions were like a year or two ago in terms of their rebuild, but they could be rebuilt very smart and be a threat down the road in a year or two if they do it properly and correctly and they don't have any snags. But right now they're not a good team. They have a good quarterback, but they got to get him some help and they got to do pretty much everything that on offense to try to get them have a chance. And I think they need to let the players they drafted last year for defense in the secondary, players like Kyler Gordon, develop. And I think they'll probably be more fine than what people would think. And honestly, for that team's sake, I hope they get a new dome type of field and get out of Soldier Field because after seeing what I saw with their game against the 49ers on that monsoon type of field, players getting penalized for trying to wipe the field down with a towel because it was so wet. I just feel bad for them. And I can see why Justin Fields would need deep breathing exercises during that Washington Commanders game while he's on the sideline, just trying to contain his anger because like playing on that field, it can't be easy because I know Fields visited Ford Field. I don't know if he met with a team, but he visited Ford Field. And I think he's the type of guy who wants to play somewhere where there's not a lot of temperature or wetness that's bugging him. So I hope that for the Bears' sake, and who knows what's going to happen. I think they might give the Lions some problems, but I don't anticipate them winning the NFC North or anything like that. So yeah, it is less than a week away from draft week, and I won't be making a video again until the day, or at least publishing a video until the day before the NFL draft. That will be my final Detroit Lions mock draft. It isn't necessarily what I think they'll do, nor do I think it's what I want to do, but just a mock draft. And we're just going to do a mock draft, one final one, and have some fun with it. And yeah, my Jameson Williams stuff, I had like 45 minutes to process what was going on or whatever. So I wasn't as angry as I thought I would have been for that. So that would have made this a better video. But to be honest, I think last season the Lions had the success they did with Jameson Williams barely being in the lineup. So I think they'll find ways for their offense to still be really good in his absence, but still, yeah, it's it's a tough pill to swallow, but I'm confident that things are going to work out. And yeah. Uh, oh yeah, Soaring Eagle Casino. There's a bunch of Lions YouTubers and Lions fans gonna be there for the NFL draft, and I may or may not go. I'm right now. I'm leaning towards no because my vehicle isn't in the best condition. There's like a crack in the windshield or whatever, and B, the whole gambling thing with Jameson Williams is leaving me bad taste in my mouth about casinos because gambling, casinos, that sort of thing. But I might change my mind by that time. We'll see what happens. So, but until then, go Lions, one pride.